Welcome to the world of Rex. This is Mr. Marvel Rex here. I am so excited to be with each and every one of you as we dive into the astrological weather for the week of August 4th to August 10th of 2025. We're going to be diving deep this week, not just into planetary movements, but into soul level evolution. Before we dive in, you can support this podcast through the links in the show notes. We love the links in the show notes. You can always support me as a content creator by Venmoing me, just saying thank you for the pod, sending me a cup of coffee. That's at Marvel-Rex. You can subscribe to the World of Rex newsletter for bonus content, readings, book and film recommendations. There's lots of awesome things happening in the newsletter. And then don't forget to follow us anywhere that you listen to your podcast. That helps me so much as a content creator. All right. Let's dive in. We're going to do big picture first, and then we're going to relate it to what's happening day by day for the week. So big picture, we have some very intense Leo and Aquarius face-off energy. So Leo and Aquarius are opposite signs. They sit 180 degrees away from each other on the zodiacal wheel. This is the axis of authenticity versus alienation. So Leo is associated with authenticity and Aquarius is associated with alienation. Now, the word alienation can have a connotation to it that's like, oof, bad, like you're alien, you're foreign, you're outside. I would ask listeners to think about this in a way that's actually very multifaceted and nuanced. So Aquarius always has this big picture perspective because it's always sort of outside of the main thing. Whereas Leo, the opposite sign, likes to be inside and seen by everybody, center stage, like everybody sees the Leo. There's a lot of tension between these two signs because, well, they're opposites. Aquarius sees the big picture, Leo just sees themselves. So that is the tension here. It's coming in to the forefront this week, but also, again, really most all of Leo season. This is going to be highlighted, and we're going to talk more about it big picture. So right now, this summer, we've got Mercury retrograde in Leo. We've got the new moon in Leo. We've got Venus tracing her shadow from her retrograde in Leo the year prior. So there's some interesting things, coming up. What happens when one sign lights up? So the opposite is always going to get activated. So we have to talk about Aquarius. Pluto is sitting there too. So we need to remember that there is a outer planet, Pluto, takes a long time to get through a sign. He's sitting in Aquarius and will be there for 19 years. So this is very important. It's a very different Leo season than what we had when Pluto was back in Capricorn. The questions that can come up during this time, big picture, especially highlighted during Leo season, which is started right around July 20th, runs until about August 20th. The questions that come up are, do I even know who I am anymore? This is a Leo question. The Aquarius question is, where do I belong? Do I even want to belong? Aquarius is sometimes, I have a lot of Aquarius in my chart. Aquarius is sometimes are like, okay, yeah, I see the big picture. I don't know if I want to be in the middle of that, or I prefer my perspective on the outside because there's more interesting things happening on the periphery. So there's tension here, right? And this is the axis that we're working through right now. So Leo is ruled by the sun in traditional astrology. It's the center of our solar system. So you think the center of us, the center of the, Leos like to be the center of things, the way that the sun likes to be the center of all of the planets. Leo also archetypally from like a Jungian perspective is the center of you. It governs the heart physically and symbolically. So this is your life force with Leo. It's your will to create, to risk being seen, to love without control. So there's something so beautiful about Leo. I love Leo. I think it's just, you gotta love Leo. It's love. It's the heart. So, it's really important at this time with being in the dead set center of Leo season to think about where am I coming from as a singular in terms of how I'm expressing myself. The word expression is like an overly used Leonine word, but that is the perfect word for Leo. How am I expressing myself? In Greek mythology, Leo is associated with the Nemean lion, which was a beast that that couldn't be killed by mortal weapons. So they were throwing these like spears at this Nemean lion, and it just wouldn't die. The only person who was able to defeat this lion was Hercules, who's a god. and he wrestled it with his bare hands. So why am I bringing this all up? The Leo journey is not one with tools or strategy or logic. It's one through raw, embodied courage. You can't plan your way into being real. So here's the interesting tension with Aquarius and Leo. And I've seen this with a lot of my clients. I have a lot of clients who are either Leos or Aquariuses that are in tense relationships with other Leos or Aquariuses. Part of the tension here is that Aquariuses can see logically, it's an air sign, Aquarius is logical. They can see the plan or the strategy or the infrastructure to authenticity, but they don't understand it. They're like, well, okay, they did that, and that, but they're not necessarily. Aquarius is in some ways are kind of robotic in the sense that they can see. And again, it's okay if you're like, I don't relate to this. You have a whole chart. This is the archetype of Aquarius I'm talking about. But Aquariuses can sort of see the mechanisms of the Leo or the authenticity or the heart, but the heart is not logical. Authenticity is not logical. When you see someone walk into a room and you're like, oh, they're so themselves, they have so much presence. It's not that they followed a formula to get there. There's something that is ephemeral, numinous. It's unexplainable when somebody is just walking in with their raw, courageous life force. Aquarians have a lot of attention because they're like, well, okay, I'm trying to deduce this and reduce this and figure this out and oh, strategy, and here's the thing, here's the thought. And then they kind of look like they're playing pantomime. And then you look at between the Aquarius and the Leo, and you're like, well, okay, the Aquarius is doing something that's interesting, but it seems overly controlled. I'll give an example. I have a lot of Leo and Aquarius in my chart. So I live with this duality inside of me. And when I first started taking acting lessons, my coach, she kind of had to beat the Aquarius out of me. Like, I'm not joking. I mean, not literally, but like for years, she was like, I can see you anticipating your next move of expression. And I need you to just be in the moment, in your emotions, in your heart. And that's what's going to read on camera. And she's absolutely right about that. So that's why Aquariuses are are related to directors who are directing a theatrical production or a movie. Whereas Leos are actors. They are the ones that are in the moment, having the emotional, visceral experience under imaginary circumstances. So we want to be thinking, okay, am I trying to direct too much? Am I too deeply in my feelings? So the shadow of Leo is narcissism and just wanting to be approval hungry and performative just for the sake of being seen, like not necessarily being like Leo by itself is not authentic. It has the capacity for incredible authenticity just from following its heart. Like that is what Leo, the archetype, has. Like I am following my heart and I'm expressing my heart in the moment, moment to moment. But that doesn't mean that Leos, I'm not trying to create a paradigm where it's like Leos are honest and Aquariuses are not. Aquariuses can see the mechanisms and try to figure out, they're curious about the mechanisms of the Leo. And Leos in some ways are hungry for the Aquarius because they like to be seen. And Aquariuses see Leos very directly. That's the opposition. So there's a tug of war between these two signs, but not one is not authentic or not authentic. In fact, I would say Aquarius is always reaching into the future of what authenticity could look like. But Leo, here there can be a hyper performativity that just goes away from true authenticity. So you can think of like influencers online who begin to change because their audience wants different things from them, right? Whether they're being liked or not. And they're like, oh, well, I guess I'll do this because I want to be liked. An evolved Leo shows up when the applause stops. So, you think of Robin Williams, like a Leo son. He was a Leo, RIP Robin Williams, and he used his spotlight to comfort the alienated. He literally did an Aquarian thing with his Leo son, which he was like, hey, if anyone's having mental health issues, if anyone feels weird, like I am offering this. I'm offering my truth in the moment to these people who are alienated. Aquarius, right? Or things that are taboo or on the periphery of society. Aquarius. Aquariuses are very much edge walkers. They can the beauty of an Aquarius is that because they're always kind of outside, they can see so much potentiality within the group, without the group, right? Inside, outside, what's going for the future. The only way to really be someone who paves trails, like a trailblazer, is to be able to see kind of the bend of human reality. as it's moving into the future. And to be like, come over here, guys. Like, look, I see this. And Aquarius has that beautifully. It's the outsider's genius. So Aquarius is not ruled by the sun. It's ruled by Saturn in traditional astrology. And that changes everything, in relationship to the sun. It isn't just the rebel or the innovator. People think about Uranus, they think about, oh yeah, Aquariuses are so rebellious, which is true, but it's also the sign of the structured outsider. So Saturn is so important here. Saturn is about rules and structures. So this is like the in a way it's the disciplinarian who's like come to the future. Capricorn, which is the other Saturn ruled sign in the zodiac, is just the disciplinarian, if we're going to just sit in the rules and regulations of it all. Aquarius is like, hey, I'm so far outside of the system. I know the system, but I'm so far outside that there's other systems that we can create and break. We can break to then create or recreate, right? So it's the system's hacker, lives at the edge, not to be cool, but to see clearly what's happening structurally. Aquarius does relate to Prometheus. I've talked about this before, who stole fire from the gods to give to humankind. That's the association with Uranus. This wasn't an act of chaos on Aquarius's part. It was an act of radical care. So Prometheus was punished, chained to a rock. His liver was eaten daily by an eagle. And this was the cost of bringing something from the future to humanity. Aquarius archetypally, if you have a lot of Aquarius in your chart, you're sensitive to the fact that the future does cost something. The shadow of Aquarius becomes cold, abstract, obsessed with theory over lived experience, right? So me not being in the moment, right? Coming into acting class and thinking and anticipating my next move and being like, oh, I'm going to try to get my co-star to do this, and this. That's very Aquarian. It's very mad scientist. Like I'm controlling all the variables. But the evolved Aquarius uses their detachment or their outsider perspective to build bridges between the collective and the future, essentially, what's coming up, the unintegrated parts of society. So a great example is James Baldwin, who's he was a queer African-American Aquarius who used truth like a scalpel. You have to read some James Baldwin. Like, he's so aware of living on the periphery of the periphery. He's not just gay, he's Black. Like, there's so many layers to which he is othered. And it provided that very otherness provided him with the perspective to write what he wrote and to change culture through his writing and through his logic. So the Leo Aquarius opposition right now is asking us, are you performing to belong, which is Leo, the shadow of Leo, or are you standing alone in your truth, Aquarius, right? Are you abandoning your heart for the hive mind? That can also be very Aquarian. Or are you ignoring the collective for personal drama, Leo? In pop culture, we see this all over the place. We've got, I think AI generated art is the tension between like what's real versus what's fake. We've got Aquarian tech, like versus actual artists. Leo, what is real art? You think about the narrative arc in the movie Barbie. She leaves this world built around appearances, Leo. Perfect, like, oh, we're just on the beach having fun, to confront collective disillusionment and systemic complexity, Aquarius. So she really has to kind of break the fourth wall and leave the Barbiedom to go and like figure out what's happening with society and why women are so disempowered. That's Aquarius, instead of being sexy and fun all the time, so that there can be a shadow of Leo. It's not necessarily toxic positivity, but it's like superficial. Oh, well, no, everything looks pretty and feels pretty and I feel good. So, and I feel seen within this little container. It may not be my true self, but like I get to perform within it. And so it's fine. And Aquarius is like, nope, chink in the armor. Like, let's break this whole thing down. Aquarius is very similar to the Matrix. If you watch the Matrix movies, like Aquarius is the ability to see where there's malware in the system, where there is a bug inside of the computer. And you're like, that's not allowing everybody to be themselves. It's ironically interesting when you look at astrology long enough, you understand that the oppositions between signs, the oppositional tension when two signs are opposite each other, they actually end up being so much more similar than they are different, or rather, they're actually on the same path towards the same thing, but just from opposite ends of the spectrum. So both Aquarius and Leo desire the freedom of the self. Leo approaches it from an extremely intra or singular level. Like as an actor, that's a lot of what actors do, or singers or dancers. We go through our own vessel to figure out what authenticity is. And it does look narcissistic to most people, right? Aquariuses want to understand the scientific infrastructure of what it means to allow people to be free and express themselves. So they're going for the same thing from totally different approaches. One is micro Leo, one is macro Aquarius. So questions that you can, on a personal level, you might be questioning your place in your friend group at this time, or your creative industry. If you are a creator or work within the arts, culture, cultural production, you can really be questioning your place in it right now. You could be feeling unseen despite putting yourself out there. I do think about this Mercury retrograde in Leo that's on its way. We're not, or we're actually in it. We're coming out of it. I'm like, have we stationed yet? We'll find out. I'm recording this very early. But we could be feeling unseen with the Mercury retrograde in Leo, the shadow grade as well. We could be wrestling with the fear that true self-expression could lead to exile. So that's such a big archetypal wound between these two signs is, if I express myself, will I get rejected and the group's going to kick me out? Aquarius is more comfortable with being kicked out because it's like they're like already out in some ways. This hurts on a deep level for the Leo archetype. Rejection hurts very deeply. So we could be feeling that at this time. The more dialogue that we have with our inner child, the easier this process will be. And if you need to go deeper, I do this work one-on-one with clients where I guide people through inner child healing meditations and give them the tools to do that. So finally, just to kind of put the point home, Leo asks us, where am I still pretending to be likable instead of being real? Aquarius asks us, where am I rejecting love because I'm afraid of losing myself? Where am I rejecting love? So Aquarius can also be the rebel where it's like, don't tell me what to do. And by saying, don't tell me what to do, they become isolated, right? Try this dual practice. Here we go. So you can work with both of these archetypes right now. The Leo part is performing something, even just for yourself, whether you're dancing in your room, singing without recording it, writing a love letter that you don't send. You want to get into your libidinal body, your creative body during this season, this week, the next couple weeks to follow. Aquarius, the Aquarius medicine here, the homework for the energy here is share a truth that might risk disapproval, but feels like medicine for the collective. So being really honest, this happened for me when October 7th happened in 2023. My Aquarius just like lit up and was like, oh no, I see something that a lot of other people aren't seeing. And I said it and I risked a lot of disapproval and I got it. And it was actually one of the most liberating experiences I could have by being rejected so deeply by all sides. So it's not about choosing sides, actually. It's about reconciling the need to be uniquely yourself within your own emotional experience with the desire to do something greater for the cosmic collective. So it's always with Leo Aquarius, it's always both. And you hear me say that on the pod a lot because I sit with this opposition in my chart. So I'm always speaking to the Leo and Aquarius of it all. Astrology is an Aquarian art because astrology is about using science, essentially data collection, to understand human behavior and human emotions and to help us heal, which is really the Leo heart chakra. So if you're listening to the podcast, you're engaged in astrology to some degree, whether you just like listening to me or whether you like the astrology or both. We're talking about Aquarius things all the time. And we always have to bring it back and root it into the Leo, which is the self-healing, and then bring it back out to the Aquarius that's always volleying. We got to bring it back out to the collective and be like, hey, I love myself more deeply. Now I'm able to be a better citizen to other people. And I wanted to offer this. The truth in my opinion, between Leo and Aquarius is this. You don't need to trade brilliance, your inner genius, for belonging. You do not need to trade intimacy for ideology. You are always meant to be both fire and wind, both king and exile. Your sovereignty is not separate from the collective. It's your offering to it. Your sovereignty is your offering to the collective. Why do we care about all this? We have a full moon this weekend in Aquarius. So it's like um, with Mercury retrograde in Leo. Yes. Okay. So I have now seen that Mercury is retrograde. So this is big. This is a big moment. All right. We have some really big things coming up. We're going to dive into the day by day. So Monday, August 4th, we have the moon, Monday, moon day. We have to pay attention to what the moon is doing. The moon is in Sagittarius, right? The moon continues its journey through Sagittarius, which is about optimism, exploration, and a thirst for knowledge and freedom. There can be some subtle emotional tensions or power struggles right at the top. There's a semi square to Pluto. It's a time to be playful or mindful of underlying feelings. Playful is going to be hard, and avoid manipulative behavior right on Monday. Okay. The moon then shifts on Tuesday, August 5th into Capricorn, right around noon Pacific Standard Time. So halfway through the day ish, we shift from adventurous to very practical. The moon is going to make a bunch of moves on Tuesday. So Monday starts out a little bit like very mutable, so very open, flexible, like big visions. And then Tuesday, it's like boom, by noon Pacific Standard Time, we have the moon squaring Mars, the moon squaring Saturn, and the moon squaring Neptune. Okay, so yeah, and we're gonna talk about this Mars entrance into Libra coming up on the following day, but this is a lot of movement for the moon. I think that Tuesday is gonna feel very different than Monday. I think that Tuesday is very hot on the Richter scale. It is going to be challenging for folks who are not taking personal accountability for where they stand. Okay. So if you have been not setting boundaries, Tuesday's going to be real hard. If you need energy to set boundaries, Tuesday's a great day with all these squares to set some boundaries. If you have some built-in like torque on Tuesday, which I could see a lot of people, the moon is building up this emotional torque of like, oh God, we're getting to a full moon. Oh my God. It's advisable to channel this energy into constructive activities, like really work out, get yourself a work project. Capricorn loves to work, dive into a work project. It's actually a better time with the moon in Capricorn for emotional restraint and a sense of responsibility, focusing on long-term goals, long-term commitments, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. The square to Neptune, unfortunately, is going to bring probably a little bit of confusion or red rose-colored glasses. So you don't want to be escapist on this day. You also want to really ask yourself or get a second opinion. I would recommend getting a second opinion from somebody around, oh, am I seeing this clearly? Am I seeing the situation clearly? What's happening here? Kind of a nice aspect for creatives, but if you're dealing with emotional, relational stuff, this can be very challenging with Neptune in the square. The moon's under a lot of pressure on Tuesday. Now, Wednesday, Mars enters Libra at 5:34 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Oh, gosh. Responding to Venus in Cancer. All right. I don't know if you can see my face on the YouTubes, but I'm like, yikes, I don't know how I like it. It will trine Uranus, so, but it does oppose Saturn and Neptune. Like, this is a huge day. Wednesday, hump day, is the biggest day of the week to me, apart from the full moon. This is just a doozy of a week. This is not a joke. This week is not a joke. We go from practical precision to relational strategy very quickly. So the Mars in Virgo was practical precision, like figuring out your day-to-day routines. What am I doing? Am I organized? Do I have my shift together? Okay. And then boom, moves into Libra. And it's all about Mars in Libra is like inflammation in relationships. How do I strategize in my relationships? How do I move the chess pieces so that I get what I want, but I'm also having to compromise? Conflict will seek diplomacy at this time. Now, Mars is in its detriment in Libra. It does very well in the opposite sign of Aries, its domicile. So this is a very weak Mars all of a sudden. Mars loses all of its dignity, literally all of its dignity. We had a similar transit, okay? And some of you might really grimace when I say this. We had a similar transit when Mars was in Cancer retrograde. This would have been technically he was direct in October of 2024, but he was in Cancer 2024, October of 2024, November of 2024. Then moved back into Cancer, I believe in mid-January-ish of 2025, February of 2025, parts of March of 2025. So it's been a long, we had a very similar aspect where, or transit rather, where Mars was without dignity. So you want to think back, and this is going to square that whole cycle. So there's a change in that storyline. Something is changing from back those dates I just mentioned, but Mars is still behaving bad. Is now going to be behaving not badly, but not in a lot of dignity. So when Mars is out of dignity, he can be. Look, I know a few Mars and Libra clients. Okay, um, they are very sensitive to their relationships, but they can be manipulative. Mars is not working with all of his faculties. So he's really scrappy. When he's out of dignity, he's like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to try to figure this out. And it can be messy. So Libra is the sign of relationships. Relationships can get inflamed at this time because there's a desire to figure out what are we really doing here? But again, Mars is not working so great. So this is going to be especially hard for Aries and Scorpios because this is your ruler, or if Mars is your time lord this year. Mars is my time lord this year. Yikes. I'm like, yikes. So when Mars loses his dignity, we can try to fix relationship stuff by any means necessary, but it can be a little awkward, messy, doesn't work. Okay. So you want to be really mindful on Wednesday, particularly if you are a Libra, are an Aries, are a Scorpio. I would say even Taurus. Taurus might feel this just having, Mars in a Venus ruled sign. There can be some inflammation here. So, you know, there's some good things happening. The trine to Uranus to me indicates a breakthrough. But again, with the opposition to Saturn and Neptune, it's a breakthrough in a relationship that all of a sudden highlights and shows a lot of inflammation. So it's like, whoa, I see something differently, Uranus. And like, I understand it conceptually now. What the hell do we do about this? This is like a huge standoff. The opposition between Mars and Saturn. Saturn, Neptune in opposition to Mars. Like Mars is coming in to Venus's domain and it's like, ugh, I don't like being in this like nice clean house. Like why it's like sitting on furniture that's covered in plastic. Like Mars is like, why can't I just like be a big boy in here? Like I just want to be a messy boy. And the Saturn Neptune opposition is there's a disciplinarian who, to some degree understands Mars because they're in Mars's sign, but there's an element of like, okay, I understand that you're messy, but you're not allowed to sit on the furniture. And Neptune's like, sit on the furniture, maybe try it. And so it's like Mars is in a really, really, in my opinion, messed up position because he's like, I can't get the things done that I want to get done in here. And somebody's telling me not to sit on the furniture, and the other person's kind of goading me to sit on the furniture. So really the way that let me translate it into our relational, because this is going to be so relational for many people, particularly the cardinal signs. It's going to be extremely relational, i.e., between two people. The way I would translate this is we are likely going to see a dynamic from a completely new perspective. That's the trine to Uranus. We then have to have a conversation about it. There's going to be so much tension between what rules do we need to set versus what rules are actually ultimately not helpful and confusing, Neptune. How do we seek diplomacy in a confusing situation, Neptune, where Saturn is saying everyone needs to be an individual here. Saturn in Aries is like, we need to create structures where everybody gets to be their full self. And Neptune's not making it easier. But is a little visionary. There can be some visions. If you need to, I would say to work with Neptune, you can do Neptune things, which is consult tarot, consult the I Ching, do meditation, ask yourself, okay, what are these relational issues? How can I use occult practices to get more information? How can I go and meditate and figure this out? That's a way to do it so you can locate yourself. But Mars is going to say we need to deal with this right now. So we just want to be very careful here around what we're putting out in our relationships and how we're showing up in our relationships at this time. The aspect can create tension between emotional needs and desires for affection. There can be a lot of tension here. And Mars, as rather Saturn and Neptune, are asking for new paradigms in our relationships. They're really here to have us be more boundaried, but in a way that is still relational, which I know is so hard. Personally, I know this is somebody who has a Libra moon. Like, it is so hard to be like, I see you, I want to be in relationship with you, Libra. That's where Mars is. Mars wants to be in relationship in Libra, but he's like, I don't know how to compromise. or we're trying to figure out how to compromise and I'm getting really upset because it's slowing me down. Mars doesn't want to get slowed down. So, how do we both set boundaries and still be in relationship? This is going to be deeply highlighted this whole week. It doesn't get necessarily easier because the moon enters Aquarius on Friday, August 8th, and opens up this full moon portal. All of a sudden we're going to be really rebellious, right? But we're also aware of how the structures aren't working. All the Aquarian things I said at the top. The Aquarius part is like, oh, I see the whole picture now. So by Friday, August 8th, we're like, oh, okay, I see the matrix. I'm seeing through the matrix of my relationships right now. Everyone's going to be feeling that. Everyone's going to be feeling maybe a little bit like they're a rebel without a cause, or they're not fully loved for who they are. There can be this feeling with Aquarius. I know this because I have 4 planets in Aquarius. There can be a feeling of, you don't understand me. You don't understand me. There is a lot of support from Pluto and Uranus here. So I do think that power and control issues are dynamically changing at this time. So for anyone listening who's getting stressed out or just feeling like, wow, this is a hell of a week, there is so much movement here. I do think it's going to be a moment where we have to feel it to heal it. So we have to feel the pain. We're going to have to feel the pain. We're going to have to acknowledge the other person's pain. We're going to have to really feel it to heal it. With Leo, it's like, I have to feel it in my heart, right? Emotional challenges will likely arise, requiring a lot of patience and resilience, knowing that things are changing. The trines are flowing aspects. So we've got a huge air trine in the sky between Pluto, Uranus, and Mars. Okay. That's very workable. It's like we're trying new things in relationship because we know we can't do this anymore because it's so painful, right? That's what I would say looking at this full moon. There's a lot of options and potentials for emotional healing and growth, probably in the 2 weeks to follow this week. So this week is like presenting a lot of the things right at the surface. Oh, this is, we're seeing the matrix. We're like, yikes, we can't avoid we can't avoid the elephant in the room because Mars just entered Venus's house and is like, hey, Saturn, Neptune, what are you doing? And they're both like, well, this is what we need to do. Neptune's like, I don't know, we could do that. We might not do that. This is very much a clarifying moment in terms of what your Aries storyline is. So if you know where the Aries part of your chart is, this is very clarifying as to what you need to be doing and working on over the next 3 years, which is Saturn moving through Aries. If you don't know, please book a reading with me. And if you are an Aries, Sun, Moon, or Rising, you really need a reading, or you need to really pay attention to this week because there's going to be a lot illuminated as Mars enters this sign, your opposite sign, as well as Libras. This is going to be very illuminating for Libra risings in particular. Okay. I do think that with the Mars opposition to Neptune, you want to be so careful with your actions. This is Mars, again, with the furniture that's covered in plastic. Like, I could see Mars getting tricked by Neptune. And Neptune's like, yeah, just remove the plastic, sit on it. Saturn's not going to notice. And then Saturn busts into the room and is like, how dare you sit on that furniture? How dare you take the plastic off? And again, this is a metaphor for our lives. I know it's a weird one, but you want to think about going slow with your actions and your behavior pretty much all week, but I would say definitely Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Those 4 days, like, you don't want to make hugely risky moves because Mars is about action, literally taking action in the world. The opposition of Neptune is very confusing and could be deceptive to some degree. You want to follow your gut. You want to slow down and do the occult and metaphysical practices I talked about, meditation, moving your body. I would really recommend that. It's going to be hard because Mars is trining Pluto. It's going to feel really like, ooh, yeah, I'm going to take a big risk. So it's such a trap, I have to say, and not in a bad way, but it's like you just want to really slow down so you didn't get snagged. I don't want anyone to get snagged. It's okay if it happens though, like, it's okay. So we're just going to do a wrap up here to think about. This is a reflection prompt. Where in my life am I being called to evolve from performance to purpose, higher purpose? That's Aquarius. With the full moon here conjunct Pluto, what parts of your identity, Leo, have been shaped by external validation and which are ready to die off? That's Pluto, so that you can serve the collective from a deeper truth, Aquarius. Mars's opposition to Saturn and Neptune this week asks us, are you chasing approval or aligned with your soul's pace? What illusions, Neptune, or inherited scripts are blocking authentic action? Mercury stationing direct in Leo supports reclaiming your voice. So there's Mercury stationed direct on the full moon, but it must be a voice sourced from inner authority rather than performance or protection. The Leo Aquarius polarity reflects the individuation process, the emergence of the true self, which is Leo, the inner child, in service to the larger psyche or society, Aquarius. So Leo by itself is the ego. Aquarius is sort of the higher mind, or the tapped into the collective. Sort of the id versus I guess for Freudian, it would be the id versus the superego. The calling this week is to burn away our persona attachments and give voice to our inner Prometheus, which is the part of us that is bringing fire or technology or breakthrough, not for the applause or the love of a person, but for the transformation of all people, for the transformation of everyone in the situation. So again, this is the idea of thinking about being on a team and looking at a problem together as a team rather than saying the other person is the problem. Aquarius knows inherently that when you say another person is the problem, it's actually you're saying yourself is the, you are implicated, right? Aquarius are very sensitive around that. They know that projection affects everybody, right? Leo doesn't always see that. Leo's like, how dare you? That's a very Leo thing, is to be like, how dare you judge me? Aquarius knows that all of our individuation processes are deeply intertwined in particularly in our one-on-one closest relationships. So good luck this week. I love each and every one of you. Thank you for being patient with me as we figure out all the technology stuff on World of Rex. It is a learning curve. I'm having some Saturn, Neptune, Aries stuff happening in my 10th house of public reputation and career. So it's a lot for me. I love each and every one of you. I deeply do. If you want to work with me one-on-one, check out the links in the show notes. If someone needs this podcast right now, especially Leos and Aquarius is listening, please send them the podcast. That helps me a lot as a content creator. And I appreciate your questions and feedback. You can always ask questions through Spotify for podcasters. Check it all out there. The link is in the show notes. All right. I love each and every one of you, and I'll talk to you soon.